Trevor Belmond, sitting in his private jet's black synthetic leather seat, swirled a glass of whiskey between his fingers. His eyes fixed on the hologram in front of him. The satellite scanner displayed the exact crash site location. He had no time to waste. Every second that passed, alien hunters and unscrupulous corporations could be closing in. "This one's mine," he muttered to himself. As soon as he landed at the clandestine base in Baril Lota, he rented an armoured jeep and sped into the depths of the Patagonian forest. The tyres kicked up mud, leaves and twigs as he navigated the rugged terrain. The dashboard sensor beeped intermittently, signalling he was getting close. And then he saw her. In the middle of the clearing, surrounded by the wreckage of an alien capsule, stood a woman, tall with a sculpted body, smooth pink skin that shimmered under the moonlight, and long silk-like white hair. Her lilac eyes sparkled as she noticed Trevor, who stepped out of the jeep without breaking eye contact. "Now that's a find," she said. She took a slight step back, her bare feet sinking into the soft earth. Fear flickered across her face. Trevor raised his hands, activating the universal translator strapped to his wrist. "Hey, relax. I'm not here to hurt you. What's your name?" Her voice was melodic, entrancing, laced with an exotic accent. "Celia." Trevor smirked. "Beautiful name. Listen, Celia, I know you just crash-landed on Earth and you're probably confused, but I can help you. I can make you more than just a lost refugee. I can make you one of the most desired women on this planet." She tilted her head, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Trevor stepped closer, stopping just inches away from her. The sweet scent of her skin filled his senses. That wasn't common with aliens. Most had stronger, stranger odors. But Celia was different, more human than any other he'd encountered. "I own the Belmond Agency, the biggest alien modeling agency on Earth, and you, darling, have the most potential I've ever seen. Your look, your body, your presence. You could be an icon and I can take you to the top." Her eyes gleamed with interest, but also with a hint of skepticism. "And what's the price for that?" Trevor smirked, his gaze sharp and calculated. "Before anything else, every model I recruit spends a night of passion with me." Celia's eyes widened, her face flushing a deeper shade of pink. Her lips parted in surprise, but soon a faint smile curled at the corner of her mouth. "In my culture, that is a compliment. A man wanting to share his energy with me is an honor." Trevor raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Most models he recruited didn't react like that. Some hesitated. Others were outraged before eventually succumbing to his charm and the promise of fame. But Celia, she seemed genuinely flattered. She stepped closer, her eyes shimmering with a mix of curiosity and desire. Trevor felt the warmth of her body, the electricity in the air. He lifted a hand to her face, his fingers gliding over her impossibly soft skin. "If it's an honor, then let's make it unforgettable." Celia didn't answer with words. Instead, she leaned in, pressing her lips against his, soft at first, then more intense. Her fingers traced his chest, feeling the muscles beneath his shirt. That night, deep in the Patagonian forest, would be one neither of them would ever forget. The morning after, in Trevor's loft in Buenos Aires, the golden sunlight poured through the windows, bathing the room in a warm glow. Celia stood before a full-length mirror, draped in a white silk robe that accentuated the subtle shimmer of her exotic skin. Her lilac eyes studied her reflection with a childlike curiosity. Trevor, lounging on a leather couch with a strong coffee in hand, watched her with a satisfied smirk. "You're going to own this world, Celia, and I'm going to make sure of it." She turned to him, arms crossed. "What exactly does that mean? How will you make me desirable?" Trevor stood up, approaching her slowly. His gaze was sharp, like a hunter who had just discovered a rare gem. "The fashion world works like any empire, Celia. Power, influence, Exclusivity. You're not just beautiful, you're unique, and Earth loves what's exclusive. We'll start with the basics: posture, runway presence, body control. Then we'll work on your story. The public needs to see you as an irresistible mystery. Celia frowned. Story? Trevor tilted his head, taking a sip of his coffee. Marketing is more important than beauty. We need a narrative. You won't just be an alien from a crashed capsule. You'll be the last survivor of an extinct civilization. Someone who carries the culture of a lost world, an interstellar goddess exiled on Earth. Celia let out a soft laugh. A lie. Trevor smirked. An enhanced truth. The training began. Over the following days, Trevor introduced her to his exclusive team: makeup artists, stylists, photographers, and runway coaches, all hand-picked. Celia absorbed everything with astonishing speed, moving with the grace and precision of someone who had been born for this. Her eyes sparkled as she walked under the spotlights, her presence commanding every room she entered. Trevor watched it all with satisfaction. She was different from every other model he had launched. Her presence was magnetic, almost hypnotic, and most importantly, she never questioned his plan. She trusted him. The first photo shoot took place in a futuristic setting, a neon-lit skyscraper with Celia wearing a translucent outfit that accentuated her iridescent skin. The team was ecstatic when the images hit the networks. The reaction was immediate. Who is this stunning creature? She looks like she stepped out of a dream. The new goddess of fashion. Contracts started pouring in. Luxury brands, interplanetary fashion houses, even invitations to exclusive events on Mars and the Moon. Celia's name was becoming a global phenomenon. On the night of her first major public appearance, a runway show for Hyperion Couture in Paris, she wore a holographic gown that pulsed with lights from another dimension. As she stepped onto the runway, the audience held its breath. Backstage, Trevor watched with sharp pride. He had created her. She was his masterpiece. But at the end of the show, Celia turned to the cameras with a different kind of gaze, as if in that moment she had realized something Trevor had yet to understand. She wasn't just his creation. She was becoming something greater than he had planned. Celia's impact on the fashion world was immediate and overwhelming. Her image covered the billboards of Neo-Tokyo. Holograms in New York projected her figure, floating above Times Square. Even interplanetary media clamored for exclusive interviews with the exiled goddess. Trevor Belmont had turned an alien discovery into the biggest sensation of the century. But he wasn't prepared for what came next. One night, as he reviewed million-dollar contracts in his Buenos Aires penthouse, his holographic communicator blinked. It was Celia. "We need to talk, now." There was something different in her voice. Trevor hesitated for a moment, then answered, "Come over." Minutes later, the door slid open and Celia stepped in. But she wasn't wearing one of her haute couture dresses or the exotic outfits he had chosen for her. She wore something simple, practical clothes that didn't scream fame or status, but purpose. "What's going on?" Trevor asked, wary. She crossed her arms, her lilac eyes flashing. "You always said my story is what made me irresistible, that I was the last of my kind. But you never asked if that was true." Trevor frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm not the last of my kind," Celia said, her voice steady. "And they're coming for me." A heavy silence filled the room. Trevor felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "Who's coming?" "My people. My planet's Federation picked up the signal from my emergency capsule. They know where I am. They sent me a message. They're arriving tomorrow." Trevor chuckled, trying to mask his unease. "That's great, isn't it? You can tell the world your real origins. We can turn this into a historic event." Celia slowly shook her head. "They don't want to turn me into an event. They want to take me back. And to them, you're just an obstacle. Trevor's blood ran cold. You mean they'll eliminate threats? Celia finished, yes. Trevor stood up, his heart pounding. He wasn't naive. He knew there were alien species that saw humans as nothing more than opportunistic manipulators. But he never thought his little modelling operation could become an intergalactic problem. Celia, listen to me. You don't have to go. You're on top of the world. Everything was built for you. You're an icon. They can't just rip you away from this. She stepped forward, placing a delicate hand on his chest. I know you believe you made me who I am, Trevor. But the truth is, along the way, I rediscovered myself. You gave me a world of possibilities, but you can't decide my fate. And I won't let them hurt you. That's why I'm giving you a chance to run now. Trevor blinked, stunned. Run? You think I'm just going to abandon all of this? If you stay, you die, she said. Her words pierced his chest like a poison dart. Trevor, the man who had always been in control, who had always manipulated and shaped the people around him, now found himself reduced to a bystander in a much bigger game. The decision had to be made, but he wasn't ready to say goodbye. What if I fight? What if I try to stop them? Celia's eyes darkened. You have no idea what you're suggesting. Trevor felt the weight of that statement. He knew aliens, yes, but only the ones who wanted to be celebrities, the ones who craved Earth's spotlight. The ones coming for Celia weren't like that. They were hunters, warriors. And he was just an ambitious businessman, caught up in something far beyond his understanding. He swallowed hard and looked away. What will you do when they arrive? Celia took a deep breath. I will face my destiny. Trevor clenched his fists. He had never felt so powerless, but deep down he knew he couldn't stop what was coming. So is this the last time we see each other? He asked, his voice lower than he intended. Celia looked at him for a long moment. Then, in an unexpected gesture, she stepped forward and cupped his face in her hands. Her touch was warm, comforting. You gave me a new perspective on life, Trevor. I will never forget that. He closed his eyes for a moment, memorizing the feeling. When he opened them again, she was already walking away. The door closed behind her, and Trevor knew this was the end. But what he didn't know yet was that in the sky, the stars were moving. And tomorrow, the whole world would witness the arrival of those who had come for Celia. The Buenos Aires skyline shimmered with lights that didn't belong to Earth. On the horizon, organic-shaped ships hovered over the city, their metallic shells reflecting the moonlight. The entire world watched, both fascinated and terrified, as Celia's emissaries arrived. Trevor Belmont stood on the balcony of his penthouse, his chest tight. He had considered running, hiding, but something inside him refused to accept that ending. He wasn't a man who simply gave up. And if this was his last moment with Celia, then he would face it with his head held high. A heavy knock on the door made him turn. It was her, but she wasn't alone. Behind Celia, a towering figure entered the room. He wore black metallic armor adorned with unknown symbols. His golden eyes burned with authority. The general of the emissaries had arrived. Are you Trevor Belmont? The alien's deep voice resonated through the space. Trevor straightened, crossing his arms. And who are you? I am General Kazor, leader of the Zanari Expeditionary Force. We have come to retrieve our citizen. She does not belong to this world. Celia lowered her head, her lilac eyes filled with sorrow. Trevor felt a pang in his chest but kept his composure. And what if I don't want to give her up? Trevor challenged. Kazor let out a guttural laugh with disdain. You have no choice, human. Our people have already decided. Celia returns with us. Trevor narrowed his eyes, but then smirked. Every decision can be reconsidered, for the right price. General Kazor paused for a moment, analysing the human before him. You suggest a negotiation? Trevor stepped forward, grabbing a holographic communicator and activating a series of projections. Images of gold bars, hidden reserves, and astronomical figures appeared before the alien. I have access to a fortune that could make any empire rethink its priorities. If your people value wealth, I can offer enough gold to cover your entire fleet. Kazor studied the numbers for a long moment, his gaze sharpening. You propose to buy Celia. Trevor nodded. Exactly. You can take her, but I doubt your war council would approve of turning down an offer like this. The general furrowed his brow, then looked at Celia, who stared back at him with hopeful eyes. He let out a long breath and turned back to Trevor. Very well, human. Your gold will be accepted. The transaction will be recorded and your offer will be considered a formal alliance payment between our species and yours. But know this. If you fail to deliver the funds, our retaliation will be merciless. Trevor smiled. Don't worry, my fortune may be taking a massive hit, but some things are priceless. The transaction was completed in minutes, and Kazor confirmed the payment. He cast one last glance at Celia before nodding to his crew. The ships began to retreat, slowly ascending back into space as the sky cleared once more. Trevor exhaled the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Celia stepped closer, touching his face, a mix of emotion and gratitude in her gaze. You gave up almost everything for me. He chuckled softly. And it was worth every ounce of gold. Now come on, we have a future to build. And that night, as the universe continued its course, Trevor and Celia sealed their fate with a kiss beneath the lights of Buenos Aires.